One major upset already today in our first match of the entire weekend. Hello, NA. What's going to happen for the rest of the weekend? I don't even know.
Nobody knows because it's North America and anything can happen. And last series is a prime example of that. You know, Gale Force falling to the members of Space Station Gaming, but it's not over. Superstars looking to get that upset here over Team Freedom. And as we said before, Superstars needs about any win they can get.
Yeah, even down to just games puts them in a good spot now. If they get into a tiebreaker situation with Lag Force, when we start looking at who goes to the Crucible and who gets to play in HGC playoffs, it would make a big difference. So any game win that they could get, especially over teams that maybe Lag Force can't get game wins over, like Team Freedom. So we'll have to see. For now, let's check in with the North American standings, because I bet Roll20 are going to be very happy now to see that Gale Force, in fact, is not 9-1. They are now 8-2 after that 3-0 loss to Space Station. And meanwhile, Space Station, that keeps them in the now 6 wins club. It was 5 wins club last weekend, but now keeping up with Team Freedom and Tempo Storm. That's Space Station's goal. Get as high as they can when it comes to the playoffs for HGC Finals.
Yeah, and then as you see there, for Superstars, man, it has been a struggle to remain there at that 6th slot. They're hoping to keep that here with this series. But more importantly, it's the individual wins. It's how our breakdown of these standings goes. It goes more than, you know, did you get a win over this team, over top of this thing? Every single game matters here because of that tie into Lag Force. And I'm feeling like maybe there's a shot. We have things we have changes for Superstars. For better, for worse, we are going to watch that unfold here today. But we do, in fact, have changes when looking at the roster. No more Dahu, the sub that you saw playing throughout Phase 2, Part 2 for Weeks 1 and 2, where he's not going to be there anymore, repping on that. Garrosh most of the time is where you saw him. And in fact, Sray is now joining with the rest of the members of Superstars.
Yeah, and when I talked to Iacona, he said that it's likely that Airho is moving back into the primary warrior role, but as to the rest of the roles, they still were taking some time to figure that out.
Okay.
We've seen Yoda play some melee, we've seen Yoda play some range, same for Sray. Where things fall, I guess we'll find out now. Let's get into the match. We've got Superstars versus Team Freedom.
Team Freedom has been looking to just become stronger and stronger as they first entered the HGC back in January. They're really coming together, and at first, their biggest strength, I'd say, is that they played a couple comps and they knew how to play really well, but they're starting to expand and become a more well-rounded team. I would say Collusion has grown a lot, probably the most, I'd say, for the players on the team during HGC. He started out and he had really strong, like, 1 or 2 support heroes, and his pool has only gotten wider since then. We have the same number of wins as Lag F. We obviously are tied right now in our head-to-head matchups. Obviously, winning the series is ideal, but even just maps has great value for going into securing our spot in the playoffs and not in the Crucible.
So for set against Superstars, I think we're going to be more focused just on getting what we want without showing too much niche pick or like secret draft or whatever, right? So we can keep all of that for the GFE set on Sunday. So we feel pretty confident heading into Superstars. We think our draft is stronger in general and we're just a better team at the moment. So we should take that pretty easily.
Kind of cool to hear from both of the support players of Team Freedom and Superstars. Obviously, I loved hearing the love of Iacona to Collusion.
I thought you were going to say you loved hearing from support players, and I'd be like, yeah, duh.
No, I hear enough of that. Thank you very much.
Anyways.
But the love from Iacona to Collusion. Iacona has been a support. He's been a player in the scene for just about as long as Heroes competitively has existed, and a support player at that as well. And he has been always somewhere in the top 8, generally like in the 3 to 4 range, but more recently for Superstars this year not being able to make those same kind of successes.
Yeah, some of the 2 players when I think of like kind of old school North American players, it's Iacona and Fury. Those are the 2 that have claimed a role since the legitimately day #1 of competitive Heroes of the Storm existing. You know, the non-CSD version of King of the Storm that busted out way before when custom games were a part of Alpha. All the way back then, those guys were still on these roles. And that's, I think, the biggest difference is not only have they had that long-term success competitively, they've had that long-term success within the same role, never flexing. And it shows, you know, that they've kind of found their home there because it has been pretty dominant in North America to where like those offlaners suddenly role swap to learn better, more primary wards and things of the like.
Well, while we aren't having that from Icona, we have seen some adjustment for Fury so far with Tempo Storm. We'll see if we're going to have more of that later on. But now we're looking at Superstars and Team Freedom. Let's check in with the top cheering members of our chat for both teams. First off, Team Freedom. We loved this name before, pretty darn savvy, still at the top there. But Rambo, version 1, just version 1. Don't get scared, yes, Esports US starting to catch up.
Esports US, not Esports EU there. Does the European cheer system have, you know, like as many, you know, anti-North American as we do, like supporting NA, anti-EU?
Do you mean, are you talking about EU as Garbo at the begin or at the bottom of Superstars?
You know, normally I would like to say that in fact that wasn't the name I was referring to. But yeah, you're right.
Oh no, a fight between favorites for Rambo, cheering for both Freedom and Superstars. Good luck out there, Rambo. Stay strong. This is going to be a tough one for you.
I mean, also, we didn't even talk about the fight. We have triple tied at 2,000, middle of the pack there for Superstars. Honestly, guys, it is going to be a tearjerker is the way I'm going to describe it on who may overcome the next one during the series.
This is your chance.
You know, gosh.
Let's go to the battleground
Everything
now.
hinges on these cheers.
It does. Dread got a little emotional, but he made it through talking about it. And now we could get to the hard-hitting analysis of like whose name is longer and who factors into maybe being able to do better in this series. We're going to Sky Tempo for Team Freedom. Dread, what does that immediately make you think of?
Team Freedom is on home turf on their favorite map with their biggest strengths. Superstars, if you thought it was a hardtail before, it has only gotten that much harder here on Sky Temple. Those laser shots you hear, you'll probably be hearing a couple more throughout the next couple of minutes.
You're going to be hearing them in your dreams.
That actually sounds
terrifying.
Like a lot of anxiety.
Well, I was meaning that more like Superstars right after this potentially because, as you said, Team Freedom is very scary on Sky Temple.
So what do we see for the bans? Is there going to be an Abathur? Is that even a focus for either one of these teams? Superstars, again, is playing with Saray, the original member of their 5-man roster. But as he has not been playing with them the first couple weeks, we don't know if their draft is going to change. We don't even necessarily know the exact roles of Superstars.
And they may be fluid here. They may use this series to test some things out.
If anybody, Hosey's going to be the range flex always. Iacona is always going to be the support.
Yep.
And I think Urho's always going to be on melee. But other than that, that is, I feel like the only things I can hold true for the rosters of Superstars. When it comes to the math problem, also, Team Freedom banning away that Abathur. It's going to lead to a lock-in Tassadar for members of Superstars. I'm not going to say the name Tracer, but this is the second best map for her. It just seems like, NA, we're kind of over it, you know? Nobody wants the frog in a bubble.
We'll have to see. A lot of the teams haven't settled on a consistent meta yet, and we may not see that full settle, but it does seem like one thing holds true, and that, my friends, is Medivh.
Medivh and Beef, man. We got Beef for dinner in every single series.
He's
Everyone
there again.
loves themselves the ETC. You are right, though. When looking at the Medivh on a map like Sky, only confirming the hypothesis here. Honestly, it's got exponential growth, though. I didn't think it would be this consistent this fast. When you would suddenly become that problem, he's at the point where it's like every single team and every single situation. But Dansky will be the Medivh player here this game. And Superstars, I mean, trust me when I say that you do not want to play against Dansky's Medivh. I've talked about it before. The guy is a monster. And they respond with a Dahaka Rhaegar. Dahaka Tass, a little bit awkward. Yeah. Tass Rhaegar, though, together.
I was wondering how many seconds it would take for you to bring up the Dahaka Tass.
You know, it's like Tass Mouthhill. It's just like, you can see where you're headed and why we got there, but you aren't necessarily satisfied that that was the most optimal decision or outcome for your squad. But they do have the Rhaegar to maybe make up for that.
Yeah.
It is still going to be a kind of kitty wampus, though. Again, because that side roll will be having the Dahaka.
Still a warrior to be had, but Team Freedom, if they are hoping to deny hero pulls, they can't really do that. That is one thing going for Superstars, is nobody really knows yet what's going to happen. But I like this focus for Team Freedom, potentially. I mentioned it for last match, but it was actually a note for this match. Both these teams have a lot of focus on Lunara, and I wondered how high she would climb throughout, but also because we've had a full week, if that would continue on. But it does still seem to hold some value, at least to Team Freedom. They're going to ban her out. She's played by both Yoda and Hosty, so it would make sense that either could play her here as a possibility.
Well, Superstars has valued the Lunara, but that's been in the hands of Yoda, and Yoda has been essentially a walking Lunara Vala over the past couple of days, it feels like. And now, so with the Malthael and the Lunara gone on the other side, the Tassadar picked up, it feels like it's going to be another pick into the Vala, because Superstars was the first team high picking the Vala, where I was like, this is standing out. Like, I've never seen a team willing to do this. Granted, we have now seen it's more than just Superstars doing it. Even EU is comfortable going in that direction and still prioritizing Q-Build Vala on non-VOE maps, but it is a shift in meta that Superstars very much was at the forefront of.
It does make me wonder, though, if we'll keep having Yoda play Vala, because the synergy there would be Vala and Hostie's Tassadar, but I think there's also something to be said for putting Vala for Hostie and then having Srey play the Tassadar if they want to put Yoda back on the side-soaking role that he became known in the scene for doing very well in.
I personally feel like that would be in their best interest, but there are a lot of things that have to go right, and you know, a lot of things have to be set aside if that is going to be the outcome or situation Superstars can build here. Mainly, I'm just going to say it, egos is the first thing you got to be looking at, right? Nobody wants to be that guy off on the Tassadar just enabling, especially when you're removed from your main and priority role. But the Lucio, he's back for Collusion.
And even not being against Malthael. Generally, it has seemed like Collusion's preference lately has been Rhaegar, and obviously Rhaegar here taken by Iacona. So in this case, still being willing to go into Lucio, even despite not being against the Malthael. So this shows that at least some teams are still finding favor with him, even though they're not worried about Tormented.
I think the area that you know Lucio is very good, and when that happens is when we see Lucio picked out, because Lucio was even post-nerf picked with a secondary support, with the cross-supporting, right? So Tacit, Arterial, False Stats, anything that can buy you a little bit of time. Medivh is that character here, so it's not as surprising. It's when you see a not into Malthael, but also without a pseudo-support with me, somebody else to aid the Lucio, is when I will be like, you know, Lucio's here to stay. Granted, if you ever find that situation because he's so useful in other areas, he's probably busted. Probably a little bit in the area of good old OP, but it is that is the parameters that I think you would need to see unfold before you can truly gauge Lucio.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They have the Medivh to help with positioning with portals, as well as the Force of Will to negate a lot of burst damage, potentially coming out from that Greymane now. Final pick for Team Freedom. We have everything but probably a Cure hero at this point. So what is that last one? No Dahaka. There is a possible Illidan. But like you said, we haven't had as much Illidan play.
There's a little Sonya, but there's not too big of an argument the other avenue on the side of Superstars. What 1v1 matchup would we really like to see to synergize with the Lucio? I'm thinking of it like Arthas?
Yeah.
Yeah, it synergizes with the Medivh and the Lucio really well. It does decent into the Dahaka laning matchup. And it's just kind of one of those, Cure isn't an outstanding player, and when he's on high impact flashy characters, it seems to really kind of fit him, you know, and whenever he's kind of getting the right clicks in. And so it's one of those, it's more just sad to see that Cure, we know he's going to be on like a lesser high impact than I am, like oh, I don't like this. It's more just, sadly, Cure is not going to be, you know, killing everything on the Illidan, for instance, throughout this game.
Now, Team Freedom came in to Part 2, and we're changing up some of their drafting. Last week had their second series and had a dominant 3-0 performance, and we're drafting generally what they used to draft. With the exceptions of Warriors, they changed up. They obviously like ETC. And then the changes in supports that we've seen, bringing in more Lucio. This does seem like still a lot of picks before, like they used to have, but the Arthas is less frequent. We've seen it a couple of times here and there from Freedom, but it does seem less frequent. More reactionary, though, to Superstars than maybe necessarily being something that they believe is the new meta.
Yeah, and it is a little difficult right now to gauge how much is this is Team Freedom and the picks that they like to be have as Team Freedom, specifically like the Stitches Diva of phase number 1, and how much of this is new meta and objective strength. For instance, I will just say that ETC and Medivh are those heroes. They are now respected with enough objective power. But Lucio, he's in that question mark gray area, and I would say his is probably Team Freedom focus because he hasn't shown up enough in NA other than, again, matching into that mouth hill like we talked about. So that is a little bit of the Freedom flavor. All the rest, though, is just purely reactive. And honestly, I feel like it's kind of convenient that it's laid out that way. It displays proper drafting, at least thought process-wise. You should often go with objective power, middle ground, and then niche fits our playstyle to weaken my opponent's advantages.
Exactly, and we'll see how it works for them and how Superstars can do versus Team Freedom with Sray back in the mix. We're going into game number 1 on Sky Temple. See you there.
Team Freedom is going to kick this off in the blue. We have Collusion on that Lucio. Zugrug repping the ETC. Cures on the Arthas. Dansky playing Medivh, and last is Nasmus on Vala.
And in the red, Superstars with Sray back playing Dahaka in this game, which puts Hosty on Tassadar. After that, Yoda will be playing the Greymane, so sticking with his ranged role. Icona playing the Rhaegar, and finally Erho back on familiar territory playing Muradin.
It's going to be very important for Superstars to not let this game get a more than a half level in difference of experience and structurally no more than a fort behind starting around the secondary shrine phase. With the comp that they have, they don't have overly synergistic nor honestly very effective killers throughout the beginning half of the game. They do decent though post 10. At least they put up a better argument for their teamfight capabilities post 10. So again, it's important they remain on even footing during this period of time.
I'm going to be watching the synergy for Superstars between the two Warrior players. Erho did a fantastic job on the off-lane role when he was playing that, especially last week in the matches they had there. And now to be back on the main Warrior role, that's going to already be a sort of shift for Superstars, especially if Yoda is still calling the shots the way he was with Daihu. And then is the synergy there between Erho and Sray, with Sray making sure to follow up with his drags, because that was a key component for Superstars last week.
It was a very key component for them, and the success, or I don't know about necessarily the success at all point in time there for Superstars. Superstars did find Zugrug for a minute there. They've done a very good job of controlling this vision. Dansky comes in there and Raven for him, though, is enough to deter Superstars from moving any farther forward. 2 seconds out before the top and middle shrines will come alive. And again, it's whoever controls vision controls mids traditionally because it's so easy to transition down and get the flank around. And it's important. The Superstars consumes a lot of these early shots to remain ahead up until the 10 and heroics come online.
2-man of Superstars in the bottom lane. One of them is Dahaka, but still Tassadar. Maybe in case Team Freedom chooses to invade the top temple, Dahaka can still show up right away, and then otherwise you still have Tassadar in the lane. But now Tassadar is going to make the rotation, whereas Erho just continuing to keep watch of Team Freedom and where they're all hanging out, making sure they keep eyes on all of the members. Superstars, with just focus in the top temple, we'll see how aggressive they want to get immediately after this temple phase. That's when we know they like to go down, immediately get their giants, and then try to invade the giants of Team Freedom.
We just saw a situation where we saw Nasmus end up not connecting with that Hungering Arrow up through mid. In the last game, or the last series specifically, Equinox had a bit of struggle with it as well. There has been a couple iterations of Vala's Hungering Arrow. I think 3 in total since the beginning of Heroes of the Storm. That might be, you know, a little bit off there, but it's pretty close to 3 iterations. And this is by far the most difficult to be successful with. Even at point-blank range, if you end up just slightly being off, you are going to lose a lot of damage. But I do need to highlight that Equinox's build going full Q build, and then now still seeing Team Freedom here, and Nasmus going into traditional Hot Pursuit W build. It's way more acceptable to move that. If you do go into Q build and you do not land your Qs, you pretty much could have picked Raynor and been a better hero. And let's be real here, we all know that Raynor is by no means an outstanding performer at HGC.
It's really cool to see Superstars go up in the top and try to prioritize their bruisers instead of doing what they normally do, and that will let them make sure to get a fort because they clear out Freedom's bruisers. But what it did do is Freedom sort of just cut their losses and said, fine, we'll come in with our Medivh, we'll keep eyes on you, and then we'll invade and take your giants away. So Freedom responding in kind. As to the Raynor, I think it'll be a long time still until we can get Raynor in. We briefly had him when Hyperion was a very strong Hyperion. It got some upgrades.
Strong is the word we're going with my boy Jimmy. He was, yeah, Hyperion got a couple extra cannons, and it was just the right amount of cannons. And I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see him back for a long while. Superstars, though, is getting aggressive on the bottom Giant camp. I want to say that this is unpredictable and something we couldn't expect from them, but about every single time they play Sky Temple, they adore the aggression over the bottom Giants and invading their opponents. They were unable to get their own in this game like they normally do, but they did at least get that invade here.
Yeah, and instead of going for their own, yes, they lost those, but they got Bruisers, they took out the Bruisers of Freedom, and they took down the fort, which gave them a slight spike in experience and let them get into position better for this bottom temple, which has also been a problem for some teams before when they focus so much on having Bruisers and trying to take out that top fort. So Superstars continuing to iterate on a strategy that we've known them for when they start looking at how they can invade camps. And it worked out really well for them here. They got a lot of the temple shots away from here before they disengaged.
But Superstars walked straight all the way down here, which shows that they have a very high intent of being able to get pressure out and then using that brush dock into a side lane and getting the experience there. They get a drag onto Cure, but maybe not the guy you want to go ahead and hit the slow on top of.
Yeah, made sure that he had his Frozen Tempest going, and he has Icebound Fortitude for those situations too. But Zugrug's been caught, has the armor, Force of Will keeps him alive.
And it's going to be enough to let Team Freedom not lose this bottom shots. At least for now, they back. They're going to go ahead and get this tap. Cure and friends, portals down. Yoda's the focus. Brilliant use there of the minion wave, but it might not be enough. Power slide, knock back. Zugrug gets first blood. And the battle still rages on here as Cure throws out a Howling Blast. Not going to land here today. And now shots are the focus for Team Freedom.
Yeah, they were willing to chase more people down. It ended up killing Rhaegar. And that definitely seals the deal for Superstars and how much more they can get out of this bottom temple. They did do a lot. They took away enough shots that they aren't going to lose their fort here from the temple. But it's just whether or not Team Freedom will be willing to push in, knowing that their heroic abilities are so close to being achieved, and because Rhaegar is down. They're going to use that advantage and take out the fort and make sure they keep up in structures with Superstars.
Urho is very far forward, knowing that that fort is going to go down, but the members of Freedom did not want to try and get the punishment. Instead, they back away. What are they going to do here with their 10s? We do see Dansky zoning at the Raven on top of the Giant camp, if anybody wants to be able to move on top of that. But Freedom just backed out. That was all that they wanted. They got it. They're still questioning the heroic choice for ETC, but the Rain of Vengeance pickup for Vala.
Yeah, no strafe here, but instead, Rain of Vengeance can be really useful when you know Dahaka stalking in. If no one else is there to try to make sure to help, if Arthas is more in the back line and then ETC is trying to get a good flank for a mosh pit, Nazmus can make sure to drop the Rain of Vengeance, catch him, move back, use the movement speed from Hot Pursuit, and get into a better position. And Frost Shot will help a lot with that, with the ability to slow after that too. But we're still considering Iakona's heroic ability. Probably will end up being Ancestral Healing. Can you see any reason why you would like to have a Bloodlust instead?
No, especially with the Leyline Seal. The Leyline Seal is the main reason that I feel like the answer has got to be a big old no on that one. In the minute you press R, everybody would be frozen through time, they disengage, and then you never want to waste your Bloodlust. But I don't know, I feel like there is a really cool kind of situation unfolding with the heroic choices through this game, mainly with that Rain of Vengeance into Dahaka. Whenever Dahaka does not take adaptation, I feel like Rain of Vengeance Vala suddenly is, I mean, it's exponentially more terrifying to be able to deal with. Because Dahaka's Brush Stock, when you do not have adaptation, it plays very differently. It has to go in, and its window and the burden of execution we often talk about is far higher now for Isolation. Whenever you end up using your ult, sometimes you're forced to use it, and when you do use it, not only is it a skill shot, which is already harder, but the biggest thing is the fact that your window to be successful into a team fight is a lot smaller. You only have the duration of that silence, and using the Rain of Vengeance to slow that down to make the Dahaka initiation after a brush stock, I love it, and it's a small one, and maybe not even the pure reasoning for the talent choices in this game, but it is something that I would like to see more of, because Dahaka with Isolation isn't, it's a still terrifying hero, but it's nowhere near the same play style that adaptation provides.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see who that isolation goes on, if maybe it's trying to make sure that he can hit collusion during a period when a sound barrier would be necessary to keep a team alive, because Superstars, they are sort of damage light. They're playing a double support. They've got Archon to try to help with that, and then this double warrior composition, so they're relying a lot on the Greymane to deal the damage with Cursed Bullet too. And so if a sound barrier is long enough to negate the damage that has been done, and then Team Freedom can turn around and get kills of their own, maybe isolation will be able to stop that. Another thing, maybe they're going to use it on Arthas, on Cure, if he gets too far forward, so that he can't Army of the Dead, can't walk away from that, and then they can try to focus him down. But I'll be watching to see who this isolation target is, especially since he didn't pick adaptation and he's not against a Malthael or anything like that.
Leyline's going to come in and hit 2. Stage Dive is there, and Iacona is not going to be long for this world. Sray questioning if he wants to go in and get the save, realizing that that is a lost cause. Collusion, though, he's going to go ahead and zoom in, chase on down. Boss is now started. It is kind of fallen onto the lap of Team Freedom, but no Leyline. Very little boss control remaining and no support for Superstars as we see them going in.
There is a perfect sound barrier in the Reign of Vengeance 2 as a lot of Superstars try to engage on top of Team Freedom. So with that, still no Rhaegar for a few seconds. There's no way really to heal back up, except that it is Muradin. He used Avatar, but Superstars still didn't feel confident trying to step back onto the point. So the boss will be taken by Team Freedom.
This is textbook play from Superstars, but I don't know if they're going to try and capitalize. If the members of Team Freedom now push with this boss, they just burnt 3 heroics to defend the boss fight that never happened. Superstars should be wanting this fight. They should be begging for this fight, but Dahaka is up on top. Muradin has displayed himself throughout mid. No one is giving interest in moving past this boss and forcing this fight, which, keep in mind, is going to set them down on the race to 16 quite a bit after this key front wall.
Oh yeah, they're already a level down.
And
they
now
take
the
out the
heroics are
towers. All but sound barrier is back. They've still got 30 seconds for that, but still 30 seconds for Avatar too. The fact maybe that Superstars used Avatar in that fight was enough for Superstars to allow the boss to be given up, especially since it is an earlier boss. They can clear it out pretty fast. We've got a Temple back behind this, activating in 25 seconds. Sray did all he could, pushing this top lane.
Sray busts out the old isolation there. Hit himself a collusion. He's just going to ride the walls away. 12 more seconds before that bottom shrine comes online, but at that 16 we've been talking about, Superstars has to give this up. And that isolation force attempt on bottom was just not enough there with collusion. Howling Blast, they're going to stick around too long.
Leyline, Stage Dive, Hosty is the only one out of that, but Team Freedom have other ideas in mind. They want to take out Yoda, and they will get him with a Reign of Vengeance.
And they're not done. Portal is used. Iacona is going to get booped back in. Iacona said nice things about collusion before this game, but I don't know if he's saying such nice things there after he is the reason Iacona is out of this game. Bottom keep is going to be going down 12 minutes and 30 seconds in. The Portal played like it's going for the core, but I don't know if they can do this.
They're going for the core. Dahaka is starting to come back now. He was going to go to the top lane. All of the members sitting on the core, they've got the portal so they can go back and forth a lot and try to draw away from Superstars. The shielding has already been brought down.
Portal.
2 seconds until Greymane's back. That is the big damage dealer for Superstars to try to defend this.
And Zugrug falls low. He's still wearing the damage on the core. 30% and counting. ETC is the first. Dansky goes down 12-8, 5-3. Does he get it? No. Yes! Collusion! He's just sitting there. He's dancing, letting you know what's up.
He's dropping the beat.
Team Freedom taking game number 1 on Sky Temple.
Pretty quick fashion, and that was down to just about everything Team Freedom had to get that win. But calculated, that's what you got to say.
That's pretty much all you can say at that point in time. That was very well done from the members of Team Freedom. Superstars, though, I feel like, you know, they did some things very right. The game was a little bit too short to really flaunt anything. Sky Temple is usually a map where if you are going to make those major plays, it's usually in the later team fighting phase, and they never got to that point, only going 12 minutes in. But I feel like they didn't make any blatant misstep, you know, and getting caught out multiple times. A lesser team, I feel like, against Team Freedom would get a couple of kills here and there in the laning phase and gank too often, and they avoided that quite effectively. At least the kills ended 5-4. Hit me with it. Just don't even. Just before, you see, you had words, and then you thought, and then you decided not to share
Let
them with the rest of the world?
Let me keep thinking about this point that I'm trying to stew in my
She's a
dome.
Bruin.
Let's talk about Nazmus and Yoda for now and check out some of the stats between the two of them.
All right.
We've got Yoda now still being in a ranged role, so that seems to have continued to take shape, and that might just be for game 1. We might still see some fluctuations, but he is playing the similar role that we see from Nazmus now.
He is playing the similar role that we see of Nazmus. Nazmus pulling ahead only 2% when it comes to that kill participation, but he's still sitting pretty high. The takedowns in KDA, though, not as close as you would expect. Nazmus, they're really fun, but with the success that Team Freedom has had, it's to no surprise that, you know, he'd be repping the stats a little bit better there.
Yeah, and just as we consider roles, these are from all of Phase 1, and Yoda has bounced around a lot. He has played Melee too, so it would make sense that Yoda in general would have more deaths because he is playing in that scarier role. And Nazmus played a crap ton of Diva, so when you think about that too, it's kind of hard for him to get as many deaths.
Nazmus, dude. He's been cheating the whole time. That's what he's been going for. You know, if you secretly want to cheat at that, it's a fun little mini game. It's called Playing Abathur. Is about the easiest way. If you ever want to be the stat, you never die. We both know that the MVP is selected off deaths a little bit too heavily, so, I mean, it's pretty much a free win. And
your KDA will be very happy that you played a bunch of Abathur. I know Cothenlux is.
Yeah, dude. Seriously, it's just like, and suddenly my stats just increase like tenfold because you get so many assists, and again, unless you make a huge mistake, you're probably not going to die. A bad Abathur game is 2 deaths deep. That's like a good warrior game. Let's be real here.
That is true. All right, so what I was thinking of was there just didn't really seem to be much of a plan, I guess, for Superstars coming into this. And it may have been that it was Sky. It may have been that they had planned to be able to go longer, but early game was surprising to me how good it went for Superstars. They made some really good decisions about top. They were able to take out that fort, which gave them a slight experience advantage. They had an invade, even though they lost their own giants. So that all set up really good, but then past that was just like, well, we're just going to send a Haka to a lane again, but now they're trying to end, so we'll come back, and I don't know, it felt like we're feeling the adjustments that they're obviously still feeling, right? They've been practicing a ton with Daihu in the time that they didn't have Srey.
I think I agree with you, and it displayed there for the members of Superstars, and it's something that they're going to have to fix if they want to get games here against a team like Team Freedom. Team Freedom, though, didn't necessarily come out guns blazing in the same manner that I expected them to. Not as dominant as maybe, you know, Tempo Storm of last week, but I feel like they also kind of were just like, well, we're here to play. We aren't showing too much. As long as we don't make any major mistake, which they didn't until the boss happens, then you're like, okay, we can end the game. And let's be real here, it was still a pretty impressive end game. The use of Medivh was cleverly done through the portals there, but maybe it's just we need more. You know, we got to see game number 2, see what Superstars does have in store for us, because it does feel like the first 10 minutes of Sky are so rigid that it's sometimes even hard to gauge. You don't get to choose what you do on Sky Temple. The map is very much, okay, this is going to happen, and it's strong enough, and there's not important enough things elsewhere to where you can just be like, what if we don't? Like Infernal Shrines.
Well, let's do it then. Let's get some more